Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tara.
And what are we talking about today, Tara?
We are discussing the first part of Empire of Storms.
Woo! Yes, last week we finished up our discussion on Queen of Shadows. So if you are just joining us, know that we are doing a series read-along of the entire Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. And so last week we released part 2 of Queen of Shadows. Definitely go back and give those a listen if you're just catching up. As Tara said, we're talking about part 1. So Queen of Shadows ended with Aelin and crew kind of crossing into Terrasen territory. And she was very bright-eyed and hopeful about how things were going to turn out for her coming back to her homeland. And then this book starts us off with an interesting prologue. And you want to talk a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah, so we get a prologue of the past with Elena and Gavin, and when they were fighting Erewhon, and when they discovered that they weren't going to be able to defeat him, and kind of their plan of action to bide some time, a little bit of time for people to be able to defeat him. And so they were discussing locking him up.
Yes, it's interesting because up until this point, we get like little foreshadowing and breadcrumbs that have been sprinkled here and there. Just all of this mystery around Aelin and her heritage. And so we'll go more into that a little bit, but we see that the old Queen Elena, pretty much under the worst circumstances ever, they were looking at all-out defeat of the entire, not just their continent, their country, their continent, but the world. And so Elena beseeched her love, Gavin, for them to both just make sacrifices in order not to lose this round and to put it off for a few centuries until something happened. And so that brings us to the present moment. Last book, Elide was on the run after Manon kind of drops her off via wyvern in Oakwald Forest and is just like, Aelin's over there, book it to her. And so Elide with her busted ankle is just like, okay, I'm gonna make my way to my queen that she has a lot of love and history with. So we are back in Elide's perspective, and she is lost as fuck and just wandering around the forest, and there are wyverns flying around overhead. She's on the run. She's carrying something that is very important to Erewhon. And who does she run into?
She runs into Lorcan, and the reason the wyverns are circling is because of him, because he took out some of the yellow leg witches. And so they are looking for him to pay him back for that. I don't know. I started liking Lorcan a little bit more in this. I know he was like an ass in the last book, but this book, I don't know.
Yeah, his brand of asshole is like that kind of grumpiness that grabs at Tara. Like she just really, really likes those grumpy, strong heroes. And he is, in a way, so Lorcan's backstory is he's kind of stuck on Maeve, right? He has like this twisted sense of love for her, which we will see how that goes later on. But he is on a mission right now, going against Maeve's wishes and doing his own thing, because in his mind, this is how he can best protect Maeve, like doing what's best for her no matter what she wants. The juxtaposition between grumpy, ancient, strong, powerful Lorcan and then Elide, who is very cunning and scheming in her own way and has had to learn to survive with these like disguises and kind of manipulation tactics, is so interesting. It's almost like a Manon and Abraxas thing where Lorcan starts taking pity on Elide and like caring about her. And it's just so delicious to watch play out.
I get a parallel between Lorcan and his devotion to Maeve and Chaol and his devotion to the king in the earlier books. And I'm just hoping that Lorcan breaks out of that.
Or else we will hear about it.
Because otherwise I will lose my patience with Lorcan. But right now, it's like book 2, Chaol. I really like him. I just hope that he learns before all-out devastation happens.
So while Lorcan and Elide are together in Oakwald, just kind of pressing each other's buttons, feeling themselves out, she lies about who she is and takes on her mother's name, Marian, which is very smart of her. These new creatures appear, called the Ilkin, and they are worse than the wordhounds and other creatures. They're just more abominations that Erewhon has been creating. Even Lorcan is afraid of these and not really thinking that they're going to have much luck. So this little scuffle goes down. He tells Elide to run with her broke-ass ankle, cool. They do get away, and then their story kind of becomes fun because it's her idea to pose and become part of like this, like a husband and wife, which to Lorcan's dismay, he's just like, whatever, I will go along with this, even though he is wholly against this. They kind of weasel their way into a little traveling performing troupe. You brought this up, but who does she say that they were working with previously?
Baba Yellowlegs Circus. Okay, I'm going to take us back into that fight with the Ilkin because you mentioned that Elide is cunning and, just masterful in that. And we see a little bit of Elaine, not Elena. Wow. Why can I not do this? Aelin and Selena in her like mind frame. So I don't know. Maybe the women of Terrasen are just like all wonderful, wonderful, cunning people. Either way, when she gets kind of trapped by an Ilkin, Lorcan is off taking care of a couple others. Elide is on her own with this, with her little broken leg and no magic, all of these things. She uses what I'm fairly positive is the word stone that she gets from Caltaine. And she tricks this Ilkin into thinking that she is on their side and that if they hurt her, they will have hell to pay when they go back. And then she just like walks off free. And Lorcan's like, how the hell did you do that? Like she kind of just glazes over it.
It's so funny. I feel like he spends so much time like trying to pry information out of her, and she's just like a stone, cannot get through. Like, which we will return to Elide and Lorcan to talk more about that.
One of the reasons she was able to get him to pretend to be her husband is she promised him information about Parrington's Morath area because Lorcan is going to go get those word stones that he knows Parrington has, or Erewhon has now. He is wanting that information to where he knows where he's going in the castle and how to get to the places he needs to go to.
And meanwhile, Rowan and Aelin are still exchanging like steamy little secret private interactions here and there. There's some tension building between Aedion and Lysandra, which is what you wanted.
I know. And I was in heaven with Aedion and Lysandra with their like little quippy moments back and forth with each other. And then we'll discuss more later. But yes.
Oh, they're so cute. Basically, Aelin is kind of stuck in a holding pattern because previous book she had crossed into her homeland territory thinking she was going to be welcomed to be able to, assume her throne. And that is not the case now. She is being kept somewhere where she has to wait to get an audience with a lord, Darrow, who has basically become the temporary ruler while things are sorted out. Ren and Murtagh are essentially with him. Then they finally meet in a tavern. It doesn't go well. Darrow is a huge asshole, like so many of these ruling men are, and basically shuts her down and says she is not the queen of Terrasen. And what are you going to do about it? You have no allies, blah, blah, blah. And so there's just a lot of back and forth. Aelin's trying to tell him we have very few allies. This is going to be a problem with Erewhon. We need everyone to act and get their shit together so that we can beat them. And he's just like, problem for another time type of thing. So good times all around.
Before that meeting, though, we took a trip back to Manon and what was happening with her. And so last time we saw her, things were not going exactly Manon's way. Manon receives a visit from her grandma. Erewhon basically is there, and he looks at Manon's eyes and he recognizes them. And so he knows that she is someone to him. They are sent to Rithold to kill Dorian and take out the city, basically. So Manon is rightfully iffy about the whole situation.
Poor Manon, because she has just started expressing some level of humanity with, meeting Keltaine and Elide and taking care of Abraxas and vice versa. And so she's starting to develop feelings and conscience. And her grandmother has just told her that she sent Iskra, her favorite person in the world, ahead to, lay down the law in Rifthold. And so Manon is pissed, of course, but she's just like very stuck. She doesn't really know what she can do, but she's going to toe that line as much as possible. So after this meeting with her grandmother, she pretty much books it, her and the 13, to Rifthold Rifthold. And because she and the 13 have been doing all of these extra trainings with heavy weight, building their endurance and strength and speed and all of this, they are able to get there very shortly after Iskra has invaded Rifthold. And I don't know if we want to go ahead and jump into all of the stuff that happens in Rifthold, but poor Dorian, poor Dorian. He was already feeling alone and like very torn about putting an end to his father's life after learning that his father had been essentially possessed by this otherworldly demon king for years and years and years. So it's during this meeting in the tavern with Darrow, and he sees, Lysandra's there, Aedion's there, all of them are there. That messenger comes and brings news that the witches have taken Rifthold. And so Aelin goes into freak out mode, and she dispatches Rowan to go fly because he has the power to turn into a hawk, and then he can manipulate the air to make him, drift over there faster. And so he's the only one that will make it in time. So he is supposed to go save Dorian. Then Aelin, since Darrow has now said she can't do anything, her only ally was the Princess Nehemia, and she couldn't even protect her. And so she really has no friends in high places anymore. So who is she really? So now Aelin feels like it's time to cash in on all of these
life debts is what she calls them.
Yes, these life debts. So as we saw from the Assassin's Blade book, when she raised hell in Skulls Bay and across the Red Desert, now she is going to start taking steps to call on all of these people from her past and plead with them to help her and come to her cause, which starts with Skulls Bay. So Rowan flies to Rifthold. Aelin makes plans to go to Skulls Bay, and then sad face Evangeline is to be left with Murtaugh to be taken care of because it just doesn't make sense for a little child to be, on the road with Lysandra and crew, which makes Evangeline sad. So they're kind of just splitting ways there. We also see more glimpses of the little people. So we haven't really seen them since like the first book, Throne of Glass, when they were like leaving little flowery presents for Aelin. And now they're kind of giving her hints of like trouble that she needs to be aware of, like little warnings and stuff, and giving her a direction to go. So they're the ones that also tell her, there's wyverns, which she didn't really put it together what it meant, but Darrow kind of confirms that the messenger was like witches and wyverns are being sent to Rifthold. So there's that. And then they build like a little effigy of Gavin's temple in Ilium. So now Aelin's like, okay, we're going to have to go deal with stuff over there too, for whatever reason. The party just kind of separated.
You see both a sweet moment and I will rain down murder on you with Evangeline getting left there with Murtaugh and Rin. And the sweet moment is she also leaves Fleetfoot and she asks Evangeline to make sure to take care of her as like a kind of distraction, like, this is my favorite thing. Lysandra is leaving her favorite thing and you guys have to take care of each other. And that was such a sweet scene. But then she immediately turns back to the I will murder everybody in sight person when she tells Rin and Murtaugh that if she gets hurt at all, she will kill everybody they ever know kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, you go.
Tara loves it. Meanwhile, back in Rifthold, Dorian has been having nightmares. He's dealing with a lot after being possessed by that Valg prince for so long, and then killing his own dad, a huge, chunk of the glass palace being destroyed, and dealing with that aftermath. And he's very much on his own island over there. So he's training as best as he can with his power. Then all hell starts breaking loose. Witches and wyverns arrive. People start screaming. He's standing on his balcony trying to basically throw like fireballs, basically, and just like stop things, like destroying things. And they're trying to break down the glass walls so that they can get at him. And things look bleak until it's not Iskra that meets him in his rooms. It's like a different yellow leg.
It's Zelta.
Yeah, you want to talk about what happens?
He is being attacked by the Yellow Legs witches, and Manon gets there. And she stops him, and she kills Zelta and a couple others to save Dorian. I'm waiting for those two to get together.
And Manon killing these people, like, this is not a light decision that she makes. Like, she seriously struggled with it. And it was only until that witch's wyvern was gonna beat Dorian's ass, basically, that happens. And then more witches show up, and Manon's just like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to take 3 lives. But it's Rowan who then shows up, and he immediately deads these 3 yellow leg witches. There's like this nasty little exchange between Rowan and Manon. She ends up telling them to like get the hell out. And so they basically go the sewer route, the popular sewer route. And they duck out of there, take a little boat and escape.
And like you said, Manon does not make this decision easily. As we remember, witches, if you kill a witch, you are known as a witch killer, and you have this scent on you of that witch, as we figured out when Selena killed Baba Yellowlegs. It is avenged quite seriously. And Manon knows that if anybody finds out that she was responsible for this, she will have hell to pay. And when she goes back, she kind of does. And so the next scene we see Manon, it is as she's walking back into the witch keep kind of thing. Grandma's there, and so are all of the other matrons, and their seconds are waiting outside, or their thirds maybe. Witches are waiting outside, and then witches are waiting inside. And Manon's like, this is a trial. And so she goes in, and the Yellow Legs heir is quite peeved at her, accuses her of killing the witches, which Manon did. But Manon says, no, this was my right to take that city, and you took it away from me. And your second, or whoever Zelta was, attacked me. And so I had to defend myself, and I took back what was mine.
Yeah, Manon basically doubles down on the whole witch personality thing. It was just like, that blood and glory is mine. She had no right to take it from me. She was prepared to fight me to get it, so I just defended myself type of thing, which, it's a valid excuse. Grandma's already been pissed at Manon lately. We see that Manon is struggling a lot because her and Astrid have been getting closer. Astrid told her about everything that happened between Astrid and the grandmother and the baby and the unclean cutting scar across her. And so Astrid has been imprisoned, holding until this little witch trial begins. It's sad because once Manon walks into this open space, I imagine it as just being this flat area on a mountainside, where they keep the wyverns close by. And so you have all of the witch clans gathered around. Astrid's brought out, and she's obviously just been beat to a pulp before this trial has ever started. And they even say that they've already taken some flesh justice since. And then we see Petra again, the blue bloods that her poor wyvern Keely had died previously because of Iskra, bitch. And Petra speaks up for Manon, which is all fine. Manon's grandmother says it's fine. Then what does Manon's grandma say?
That a life for a life kind of a thing. And because Manon killed the second of the Yellow Legs, her second is going to be killed, and that is Astrid. And so the next day, Astrid is set to be put to death.
Which is so sad. It's this next morning because so many other Yellow Legs were killed too. If anyone claims that they had like a familial right to those people or knew them, they're also allowed to exact vengeance and justice on Astrid, who has already taken a huge beating. And so to put a stop to it, she claimed like the order of, I forget what she called it.
She'll be the executioner.
I was like tearing up and I texted Tara because this was such an emotional scene. The first time I read this, I didn't know where it was going. Like I honestly, it could have gone any direction with Astrid.
It could have, but if there is any scene that is going to change Manon's sole focus on what her grandmother tells her to do, it is this for me. And so I was hoping not to have another fucking KL moment, that this would pull Manon out of her blind obedience to her grandmother. We also found out that there is a reason Manon's grandmother kind of hates her a little bit. And it is because Manon's grandmother hated her mother, like hated Manon's mother, because Manon's mother fell in love with somebody that her grandmother did not approve of. Manon's dad is Kraken Witch Prince. And so that really means that Manon is a Kraken witch too. Manon's grandmother lets out that she is the witch that they have all been looking for that can break the spell on them.
In an earlier book, when grandmother rewarded Manon by having her kill a witch for her cloak, that was her half sister. She wasn't just merely scouting to see what was going on with the iron teeth. That was Manon's half sister looking for her. Then her grandmother just cold heartedly tells her, "Oh, yeah, that was your half sister. You're the daughter of a Crocan prince." It's very much like Maeve.
And then she's also got the other part of what that witch told her, which is that they're teaching you to be monsters. You were not a monster born. They're making you that. And so Manon is thinking more on that, even though she did think on that a little bit when she said it. Manon is like, are they? Did my grandmother make me a monster? Do I have a choice in this? And she does. Because when she is supposed to kill Astrid, she instead attacks her grandmother. Doesn't succeed, unfortunately, but she does attack her and tells the 13 to get away. And so they go running, and Manon is left to fight her grandmother.
And grandma ain't no pushover. She's a warrior. She is the matron of all the Iron Teeth witches for a reason, and it becomes a real good fight. And she hurts Manon pretty good, to the point where Manon is just like, "All right, I'm just gonna do a faith fall," and flings herself over the side of the mountain to get away. Abraxas, our cute little wyvern guy, catches her and tries to fly her off to safety in Oakwald Forest. But it's just, she hopes that the 13 have all gotten away, Astrid included. I think they did take Astrid.
Mhm.
Grandma is going to be pissed because you still have, Manon may have the 13, but there's still the rest of the clans there. And I think Petra was still there too, right? I don't think she
Mhm.
ran. I don't remember anything about her. So she is a witch on the run now with the 13 and seriously injured. And then we come to, where do we want to go now?
So let's go back to the little people in Aelin. So we already discussed that the little people helped her. She ends up or makes it to the temple of Gavin. There is a little battle in this temple, and I say little, but it is a large battle. Aelin and her crew come face to face with Erewhon in someone else's body. And so it is the overseer from Endovir that basically beat her the whole time she was there. Erewhon is using that to kind of unnerve Aelin because he knows she was Selena, he knows she is Aelin, and he has her whole backstory. But she turns him into ash.
She does. Aelin has been getting powerful. Those little one-on-one training sessions with Rowan must be doing something right, because she's learning to just dig deeper and be able to manifest more powerful magic. So she does just vamoose him. And he was the one that was also experimented on into a new creature, right? Like he didn't even have a heart beating in his chest. It was replaced with just the iron, the word stone. And I guess this is the way that Erewhon is able to just become the eyes of like whoever he wants, whoever's enthralled to him. Very unsettling stuff.
But as she burns this kind of temple up, because she burns all the dirt and everything that was in the temple and all the people, the Otterlonian army. I don't know how the fuck I got that word right, but I can't get the other ones. But hey, the temple is dedicated to the Mycenaeans and their sea dragons kind of thing that protected them. They have long since vanished, but she keeps that little piece of knowledge in her brain because it'll come up later. And she meets Brannon here. And so she hears a little bit about what she needs to do for the next stages. But again, Aelin is tired of the cryptic directions that she keeps getting from that family.
I would be too.
I'd be like, just tell me what the fuck I need to do.
They waste like half the time saying, this connection is so far and vague. And then they run out of time saying the actual important bits. Yeah, so she summons Brannon and he's like, yo, there aren't just keys. There's a lock that goes with these keys. And the lock is in the stone marshes. So you need to get your ass over there and get it so that you can handle Erewhon for good.
And that lock is in Ilway, in the marshes of Ilway. So she's still going to Skulls Bay because that's where she's meeting back up with Rowan and hopefully Prince Dorian or King Dorian now. And then the whole crew is supposed to head to Ilway to get these locks. So then we're in Skulls Bay Rowan and Dorian make it to Skulls Bay before Aelin and crew, and they are trying to get a meeting with Rolf. They pick out a hotel that's fancier than they would normally stay in because they're trying to convince him that they have the money to pay for his mercenaries to join their team. And Rowan, I don't remember who it was, but somebody was like, we can't pretend we have the money if we don't pretend we have the money. And so they're staying in this hotel and they run into some people that we know, little kitty cat boy and Fenris. And at first, Rowan's like, what the hell are you doing here?
Very
And
suspicious.
Yes. And he gets the explanation that Maeve sent them to kill Lorcan.
Because
And
Lorcan is AWOL.
yes. And Rowan is kind of, he's like, I don't want to help you, but if you help me, I'll kind of help you because Lorcan is going to come back to us. Like once he figures out he does not have the thing he's looking for, he will come back. He will find us. So
But he doesn't tell them. Yeah.
I can't tell you where he is, but I can tell you where he will be in the future.
Yeah, their response is like, oh, so you've seen him? Maybe.
He does basically inform them that if they stay with him, that they will have a run-in with Lorcan. And so he is trying to convince the cadre, or at least the 2 members that are here, to join him in the battles to come against Erewhon. And they're kind of like, well, we don't really have Maeve's permission, but we really were told to do whatever we needed to do to kill Lorcan. And so we are, in essence, kind of following mental gymnastics, her orders here. And so they make a kind of pact to help, but only after Rowan lets something slip of whose life is in the balance if they do not help. He tells Gavriel that if you don't help us, your son will die because he is a part of this crew that is going to fight and he will die for it.
Gabrielle has sad kitty cat boy eyes and it's just like, what? I have a son? Just disbelief. And now he's in all his feelings. And there's just, you see how there's so much at stake for each of the characters. And like Fenris, like his brother Connell, who's tied to Maeve because he essentially switched places. We've learned that Fenris wanted to be the one to train Aelin when she first came over to Wendlin. And Maeve was just like, oh, hell no. Nope, sorry. You're going to stay here with me.
But we also get some backstory to that because Fenris had turned down Maeve. He's like, no, I'm not going to be a part of all of this. I'm not going to take the blood oath to you. And his brother Connell always felt left out. And so then when Maeve came to him, he thought Maeve was coming to him and picking him over Fenris. And she wasn't. She was using him to get Fenris in her crew. And so like Fenris is doing all of this to protect his brother. And his brother, I get the sense, doesn't give a shit because he's so jealous of him. Haven't really met him, so I'm just hearing bits and pieces. But right now, I'm not a fan of Connell.
You have a lot, uphill battle to prove when you were a character introduced in this series to Tara. Like until you have been tested.
Especially if the stories that are being told about you do not show you in a positive light. And I'm sorry, but your jealousy got you and your brother sapped into basically Maeve's claws.
Tara likes to blame it mostly on the characters for, what jealousy or whatever. But he was like in essence exploited too.
Yes,
he was like
he
the younger one. And just as you said, like he did feel left out. He just wanted to be better than his brother for once. Yeah.
That's why I'm giving him a shadow of a doubt that he's probably not as bad as what they're making him out to be. But if he is, I don't like him.
Isn't it fun reading all these characters though? Like Lorcan and Gavriel and Aiden, like Aedion, they all have like such complex
They're all very gray. Like even Lysandra, who, holy hell, I sent Sandra a text. I'm like, I think I'm in love with Lysandra. Although my phone did autocorrect that. So it was not Lysandra. It was Lysander. And I don't even know who that is. But hey, Lysandra, this book.
MVP.
Yes. And I have a feeling she's going to be MVP of a few more books because she is just that. And I had harsh feelings for her in past books because of how she was acting. So I will change my mind if the character like deserves it. That's
Like
again,
Caltaine, you changed your mind there.
yeah, that's again why I'm saying like I'm giving him a benefit of the doubt that if he comes in and is not this just jealous little person, I'll be okay. I'll like him.
It's fair. See, Tara's very level, very level.
You
Very
just have to
fair.
like stop being a jackass at some point in time and I will like you.
Yeah, if it's like 4 books of you being an idiot, Kale, then there's no love for you. But yes.
I mean, there is a little bit of love now for Kale. Like he did sacrifice himself. I am thawing my frozen heart from the last couple of books of Kale a little bit.
He is also not in this book, so that might be helping. Because
the last moment I got of Kale was a little bit heart thawing. So I'm still pissed, as we've like heard me mention his name a few times in this episode already. I think we're on an upshoot of Kale. So I am not above changing my mind or giving somebody forgiveness when they deserve it.
Back in Elide and Lorcan, where they're pretending to be husband and wife and stuff, and like she's finally getting a bath, and they're sharing a tent, and it's a little tent. And I think earlier in the book, Aelin and Rowan had to share like a bed in that tavern, type of thing too. So I love those little tropes like that. I would say seeing Elide and Lorcan interact and kind of feel each other out and kind of slowly melt each other's icy exteriors was a really sweet treat to read, because Lorcan has started doing things like giving her a salve for her ankle to make it feel better, and like using his power to like assist her in walking so it's not so painful. So you see like all these little things starting to happen. You're like, ooh, what's going on there?
I am down for that one too.
We'll have words in at the end of this series. We're gonna have some words about this. No, Lorcan knows that Elide is hiding something, and he kind of confirms that whenever she gets him out of the tent so that she can take a bath. And he's like actively listening with his heightened senses, and he hears her shuffle around and just hiding things like under the mattress and stuff. So now he's just like, oh, she's hiding something. So I'm sure in part 2, Lorcan is gonna do something to piss us off.
Oh, I'm hoping not. I'm done being pissed off by these people. I want them all to succeed and bring good. But I know we have 2 more books, so that's not going to happen just yet.
Long books, yeah. Especially the last one.
Speaking of bad moments, back with Manon, we're all very sad. She just got her ass kicked by her grandmother. That has to be like horrible. Anyway, so she just got her ass kicked. She's trying to get away, and she gets visited by somebody that calls herself the Bloodhound. And it's very creepy, very creepy.
I think they were like sprinkling these breadcrumbs like maybe 2 weeks back. I feel like it was probably an Air of Fire where they were talking about these women flying around, like these winged women. And so this woman is that, right? She's like very fair skinned. She has like, I think it's like sapphire eyes, auburn hair, very beautiful. It's almost like a little woodland nymph trap kind of thing, which is creepy, but we learn that it's all like a little facade. Yeah, it's a mirage. And she is this very grotesque, hideous creature. Poor Manon and poor Abraxos. But Abraxos does his best. They get away, and I think Abraxos uses his steel poison tip tail to like attack her and get away again with poor Manon, who is just literally bleeding out. It's like Abraxos' side is just covered in blue because she has lost so much blood. And so Abraxos takes her, and they just start flying again from the forest, just flying off somewhere. And then we are taken to Skulls Bay again.
Aelin, or Selena, comes sauntering in.
No, she's like already sitting in Rolf's office.
Yeah.
Like Rolf is like, fine, I'll meet with you guys, whatever. He's like unlocking his office door, and they open the door, and she's just like sitting at his desk with her boots up, like, oh, hey guys, type of thing. And her little assassin swagger, like her little smart ass is back. And it's so fun. And he still has no idea who she really is.
No. And he is so mad because he's like, the last time you were here, I told you if you came back, I'd kill you. And she's like, we'll give it a try kind of thing. It's so great. And she's playing with his little emeralds. Like he has like emeralds or jewels of some sort. And she is playing with them. And then he calls her out and he's like, now put them all back. And so she untucks one and puts it back. And then he's like, and the other one. So she takes it out of her mouth and puts it back. And her court is looking at her like, what is going on?
They're just like standing there tight-lipped, just not saying anything. Like, I don't know where she's going with this, but just let her go. And then who walks
Rowan
in?
is trying to keep like from laughing, especially when she comes up to him and she's like, I might like this one. And so he's trying very hard not to laugh. And he's like, I'm taken. And she's like, oh, she must be really, really beautiful. And she must be so amazing. And he's just like trying to like keep it together. And he's like, she is. Oh, that scene got me.
Such a cute scene.
So much snark. And then Aelin 2.0 walks in. Selena 2.0 walks in under the name Aelin Galathynius. They basically tell Rolf that Selena is, in fact, Aelin.
And they got a badass shapeshifter on the team.
Yep.
And his mind is pretty much blown. I like how we got a little backstory for Rolf a little bit later, because until this point, he just seemed like money was his biggest driver, blah, blah, woof, woof. Then we learned that it wasn't like he made some cruel, conscious decision to sell his soul, so to speak, to get this magical map to gain his riches and notoriety and influence, that he was a 16-year-old boy who didn't know who he was talking to, what he was getting himself into, had nothing to deal with, like no money, nothing. And so he thought, saying, yeah, I'll give anything to have something to myself. And that's how he lost his mom and sister. So we get like a little bit of, that's what I just like about all of these characters, because you only get like a little peek about them. And then as the story goes on, like these little interactions that they have with other characters, you finally get that little layer peeled away to learn what really motivated them, what really happened. So we get that with Rolf. And we learn that Rolf is like of the, what are those people called? The
Mycenians.
Mycenian. Mm-hmm. I kind of picture them like Atlanteans or something. You know what I mean? The lost city of Atlantis. It's what it very much felt like to me, with the temple and the sea dragon. And so we learn that Rolf is someone of these people, and these people are staying hidden and refusing to like come out into the public eye or do anything or support any cause. And they are waiting for like a divine symbol, essentially, to show themselves to it, which, as Tara mentioned before, is the sea dragon.
So in these meetings, Rolf is still testy with Selena.
He's grumpy. It's been a couple of years.
She cost him a lot of money, but she does get him to confirm that he stuck by their kind of oath to each other, and he did not trade slaves, and he gave them a place to stay if they needed. He's like, I didn't go out of my way, but if they came here, I made sure that they were safe, kind of a thing. And so she did get him to tell her that he did stick by that. As they're talking, he's like, no, there's no way in hell I'm gonna help you. No way in hell. And she's like, oh, okay. And she lets some of her magic out. And he's like, what the hell was that? And she's like, oh, I have to like purge my magic a little bit, otherwise it'll take over. But really, what she did was she summoned some Volg to him. Dorian's like, I know what you just did.
Yeah, she essentially let off like an emergency flare, just like, here's where we are.
Here I am.
Come to us. And sure enough,
his map starts glowing, and he's like, what the hell did you just fucking do? And she's like, hey, I'll make a deal with you. I will protect your city from these people if you agree to join my cause in the war. And he's like, okay, I guess, like, under duress here, I will do this because I need my city protected. And so we get another battle.
The Valgar lured to Skulls Bay. There's like 3 ships, and from what they can tell, 2 sea wyverns in the ocean. And so Aelin and Lysandra have been just scheming, just the 2 of them, some girl genius in the works. And so they're not letting anyone else in on the plans. So it's a surprise to everyone when they're preparing preparing to face these ships and these sea wyverns, and Lysandra just like steps off the side of the ship and just goes into the water. The water is like glowing. There's like a fucking fin like starting to ripple out of the water, and this big ass thing is just forming under the surface of the ocean. And she transforms into a fucking sea dragon, which is what the
Mycenians.
the Mycenians.
Haha, it's you.
I know, now it's me. I keep saying like the face wipes, the
Micellar?
Yes, that's what I keep wanting to say. So she turns into that, and it becomes a bloodbath. Meanwhile, Aelin has been diving deep into her power, trying to like store it up, essentially. And she is wearing the Amulet of Orinth, which we know is a word key. What happens?
Somebody takes over her body. They use that word key as an in, and Deanna takes over her body. And Deanna starts to aim at Skulls Bay. And Rowan, being Rowan, knows that Aelin wouldn't want that. So something's going on.
Her eyes change. They turn
Yeah.
like silver, and which is the like Mala, the Firebringer, like her flames are silver. And so he's just like, this isn't my Aelin. I don't know what the fuck this is. This is like some kind of creature right now. It's almost like those Greek gods, like the bloodlust taking over, where they don't really care what side wins. They just want to wreak carnage and chaos. And so that's what basically happens. And Rowan, she's even like bonded with Rowan, and like stealing his power is what Mala is doing. So now Rowan is tapped out, and now Aelin is tapped out. She finally shuts the queen, or the goddess is what she is. She shuts the goddess out of her body, and they both have nothing left. So there goes that plan, because Aelin was supposed to use her firepower to fucking destroy all these ships and stuff. And so now it is all up to poor Lysandra in the ocean herself.
And the way that Aelin finally made it through to shut Mala out, or not Mala, Deanna out, is because Deanna's aiming at Skulls Bay. Rowan steps in front of it. Aelin, being Aelin, is like, oh, fuck no, you're not going to hurt Rowan. And so she is able to push her out, which is a feat.
She does destroy the ship beneath them, though, right? Like it becomes wreckage. So it gets like misfired. So now half of their plans are fucking destroyed. Meanwhile, there was a moment when Aelin kind of remembered Sam running up the tower steps, to get Chainbreaker, and it was like Aedion running up to this little giant crossbow thing to shoot this big missile type of thing into the water. So we have Aedion doing that on one tower, and Dorian is on another tower, just kind of in the back trying to stay safe, but also like back up. But it's primarily up to Lysandra. So she is a sea dragon, but they're not like the biggest creatures. I mean, the sea wyverns are almost as big as she is, or I think the same size. And so she is killing them. All of a sudden, like 3 more sea wyverns come, and they're fucking huge. And it turns out the ones that Lysandra has been battling the whole time underwater are like baby ones. And they're the baby ones of these 3 that are on their way, and they are pissed off. So then it just becomes this game of chase with little Lysandra with these 3 big wyverns chasing her through this wreckage, and she is getting shot at by the Volg ships. So she's getting shot at, she's getting clawed at, torn at, and she is like having the swim of her life, just like diving onto ships and wrecking things, like trying to maneuver and kill these things. And Aedion comes to her rescue eventually.
And Aedion, we get a little bit of his POV while this is happening, and he mentions that this is the first time that he has hated Aelin because she put Lysandra in this position, and he is not down for it at all. He is so mad that she is in danger, which, I mean, like, what the hell are you expecting? Like, but either way, he is mad. And yes, first Dorian comes to her aid with his magic. So she is able to lure one of the big sea wyverns close to Dorian's tower, and Dorian throws ice around it. And then ends up killing it. And then the other ones are like, no, not gonna happen. Not gonna do that. Actually, she had one, like she tricked it into killing itself on the boat.
Yeah, she jumped on the ship, broke the mast to where they were like just jagged. And they chased after her and impaled themselves.
I envision Ursula from The Little Mermaid on that one. Like, that little mast goes straight into her. Anyway, and then the second one dies by Dorian's ice. And then the third one, because it's not going near Dorian at this point. It's like, no, saw how that happened. The third one, she goes like racing towards Aedion, and he ends up using his little crossbow and shoots it straight through the neck. And then she has a little bloodlust herself, goes down and kind of rips the head the rest of the way off, and then comes up with the head like, I got it, it's dead. And then comes to the beach and proceeds to pass out.
I loved how the scene was written because getting everybody else's perspective from these high vantage points, and even Aelin, like on this little piece of coral reef somewhere, just kind of stranded with the others. And Aelin screaming at her to like run and just save herself, essentially, because all their plans went to hell. Then you have Dorian and Aedion up here just seeing everything going on in the bay, just how it kept hopping from point of view to point of view. And then you get into Lysandra's mind and you see how like tuckered out she is. Like, she is exhausted. She is strained. She can't even change back right now, but she is like pushing herself to the limits. By the time all of them are dead and she is like a beached whale, essentially, and just like bleeding. She's wounded. Aedion is the first to get to her. And my heart was just like butterflies.
Yes. Because he says, he tells her that basically everybody that was around him, like all the people, are in love with her and want to marry her. And he's like, but they're not going to because I'm going to. I was like, oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yes. Yes, this is what we want. Aelin and crew shows up like after they get their little private moment, and Aelin is just like beside herself, feeling awful for what happened and stuff. But eventually, like, they leave them be, and she does change back. Lysandra does change back, and she's naked, and Aedion covers her body and like picks her up because she's just out, and like carries her back, and we see his dad like kind of observing
Stalkerish.
his son. Yeah, it's like in one hand it's like kind of creepy, and then on the other hand it's like he never knew he had a son. He really never felt like he had anything to live for besides serving Maeve, and now he sees his son who is just doing all these heroic things and he's heard stories about but never knew it was his son, and he just wants to be a part of his life so bad. So it's like, oh.
Yeah, there's a part in his explanation, like he's like, I know that there will be stories about my son, and I'm wondering if I will be a part of those, or if he will even let people know that I am his dad.
Because at this point, no, I don't think we talked about this but the reunion between Aedion, which he asked Lysandra earlier to be by his side when that whole thing went down for support. I don't know. And
because he's in love with her.
Yes, but too prideful to say anything at that point. And it doesn't go well, this little reunion. It's very heartbreaking. Emotions were very high. Aedion sounded pretty hateful, and Gabriel kind of took it. And I think others were in the room too. Like, it wasn't like a private thing. But they're just like, what the fuck?
No, and it makes you feel bad for Gabriel because, again, he made a poor decision when he took the blood oath with Maeve, but I'm leaving those with a grain of salt because there were some tricks going on the whole time. So I don't know if he made that like openly or if he was tricked into it, kind of like Connell and Fenris. So like I can't hold that so much against him yet.
We love our
anyway,
kitty cat,
because he's made some pretty good choices in going against Maeve where he could and stuff. So
as far as the cadre goes, Gabriel's pretty level, like he's very noble, has a lot of honor. You can tell he's good. He's the lion, the golden, lion. And I like him. I want them to make up. So that was a sad scene.
Maybe that's why we like Aedion so much, is because we like his dad too.
I love when the characters are just like Dorian looking at Gabriel and looking at Aedion, just being like, what? It's kind of like when everyone saw Aelin and Aedion for the first time. I love it.
And then we get some spicy scenes.
This is the first spicy scene in the series.
Yes, we get it's quite spicy, quite out in the public too.
Yeah, I was like, really, on the beach, huh? I wonder how that feels. I'm like, there's no sand getting in any uncomfortable places, really.
And from what I get, like the like waves were coming up on them too, and I'm like, I don't even like to put my feet in the waves. Like, there's too much stuff coming in with the, like, tide each time. But anyway.
I don't know. Sarah J Maas made the scene work though. Like
Yeah.
they did the deed and then they did it again and then
And
they
then they
did it
did it
again.
again.
And we see Rowan getting very, very, very strongly attached to Aelin, almost to like an aggressive standpoint, because it's after this when they kind of regroup with everybody else. And he is just like looking at everybody and how the proximity they are to her or how they talk to her. Like he is just, and kind of like the witch killing thing where their scent is on you, like their scent is all over each other after having sex.
Well, and he was kind of already that way for her protection, but now he is like racking it up 1,000% to the point that he even gets mad at like Aedion. And he's like, okay, I shouldn't be mad at Aedion. Like, it's her cousin. Like, chill, dude. To
Mhm.
himself.
Yeah.
But we do see her kind of pull out the Eye of Elena and tell Dorian to meet his ancestor, or it's time to meet your ancestor. And they have a discussion with Elena. And in this discussion, again, she's kind of like, the connection's bad. It's, I'm going through a tunnel kind of shit. So Aelin is like, shut up and tell me what I need to know. Like, stop. Like, I'm done. I'm done with your cryptic shit. Tell me what I need to know. And she's like, why? And so Elena's like, I don't know why he told you to go to the lock, but if he told you to go to the lock, go to the lock. I thought I'd used it because that lock is what she used to trap Erewhon. And as far as she is concerned or knows, it's a one-time use thing. But she's like, if my dad told you to go to it, then go to it because my mother gave her life for this. Maybe I'm wrong because I didn't know the rules of it when I used it. So go to the lock because it's the only way, if that's what he's saying. And so we get a little bit more of a glimpse of Elena's mom. And like she said, she gave her life to build this lock. And we figure out that it was her earthly life that she gave to build this lock. And then we figure out that Aelin is not only an ancestor of Brannon, she is an ancestor of Mala Firebringer.
They tell her that the lock is located in a ruined temple somewhere in the stone marshes. And so they still don't have exact coordinates for it. So that's where Rolf is coming in to hopefully let them know too.
So Aelin is on the, I don't know, one side related to Brannon and Mala Firebringer, but she's also related to the Fays and Maeve. So she has all of that combined. But Dorian is also an ancestor of both Brannon and Mala Firebringer too, which explains his huge amount of magic that he's got.
Because he has a lot. Yeah. I feel like we kind of touched on it, but Dorian is super powerful and his magic isn't just manifested in one specific way. Like it can do whatever. It's just raw.
Dorian's basically the male side, whereas Aelin's side, I don't know, is the male side of like Brannon's, because Elena is Brannon's daughter and she married into Dorian's side, whereas Aelin's side is Brannon's sons, I'm guessing, which we haven't heard anything about Elena's siblings at all. So I'm just trying to backtrack the family history here.
Yeah,
and
but they're
who's
distantly related,
what.
Dorian and
Yeah.
Aelin. And also, we're told that without any context, Aelin is the queen that was promised. And so we have zero understanding of what that means. And she doesn't understand what that means. And so that's something that she's keeping tucked away in the back of her mind to try and figure out.
It kind of makes sense because at some point, somebody had to have been promised to end the war. So it makes sense that, she would have been the promised firebringer.
Yeah, the promised one is a trope that is in a lot of fantasy too. Just like the one that will end the evil and stuff. So it will be, we got 2 books after this one, Tower of Dawn and Kingdom of Ash, which I don't think we've ever talked about this on the podcast before, but there's like different ways of reading the series. So you could read it with like Assassin's Blade first and just go through the books that way, or do it how we did so that everything's fresh in your mind with like who these people and places are and stuff. And then there's like tandem reading Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn because they happen in parallel time, but one just follows Kaol and one follows Aelin, which I'm like, I don't even want to mess with doing that for the podcast. Let's just do one book and then the next one. So the next book, we're actually going to talk about like Chaol's stuff. Before we get there, this book ends with kind of a more hopeful note for our girl Manon. So they're on a ship going for Eelway to the Stone Marshes because that's where everything is just destiny is bringing them, apparently, is just to get this lock in the marshes. And aren't Lorcan and Elide like making their way that direction as well? I forget.
I don't
like
know if they're making
what
it
they're
that way, but they're like Elide is trying to get to Terrason and Lorcan is trying to get to Morath because he thinks the word
right.
stones are with Erewhon.
Right. Okay.
And
'Cause she
Elide
was
is
like,
trying to
yeah,
get to
my dad's a
Terrason.
commander. Okay. Yeah. So we have most of the party making their way to the Stone Marshes, and then Lorcan's still trying to get information out of Elide. Like, A, what are you hiding? And B, tell me more about the layout of Morath, which she does tell him that her father or her uncle Vernon is like a commander over there. And Lorcan learns that Vernon is not a good person. And he's like, do you want me to kill him?
And she's like, what's the cost?
Yeah, smart, very smart of her to ask if there's a cost, and he's just like, "Damn it, no cost, And so that's kind of end scene for them. Aelin and crew are on the ship on their way to the Stone Marshes when something is flying at their ship, and it gets closer and closer, and it is Abraxas carrying the unconscious, bleeding out Manon, lands onto the ship, frightens everyone, and that's like pretty much the end of the scene.
Well, and you get Dorian yelling, no, don't shoot. Like, don't
'Cause
hurt her, too. And didn't she land in the water? So they're going to have to fish her out.
Oh, yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. She fell into the water off the side. Poor Manon.
But she's finally on the good side, so
she's on the
woohoo!
good side, but she has some healing to do, and she's on a ship full of haters, except for Dorian. And even Dorian doesn't like fully trust her.
And Aelin. And Rowan has to be kind of on his side now, or like her side. Like
I don't
Aelin's-
even know how Rowan's gonna be because Rowan's been weird ever since like having sex with Aelin. He's just like hyper possessive and defensive of her. Like no one get near
but
her.
I think he's going to be on her side because Aelin's going to be on her side. I can see Lysandra getting on her side, which then will push Aedion on her side. I could see it. I could see it going well.
Such a ragtag crew now that we have all together in one place, isn't it?
And then if we can get the 13 on their side and Lorcan, we'll have a decent shot here.
Yeah, so I guess
And
part 2, we'll see what's happening with all of
Eelway
them.
will be on her side because of Nehemia.
Yeah, hopefully they're not mad about or blame her for her death.
We can. I'm saying this like I'm a part of this group, but like,
but they're a fun group. No, I know what you mean. They're such a fun group. But next week on Tuesday, we will talk about part 2 of Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas, and then we're going to be moving along to the next book, Tower of Dawn, which a lot of people skip reading that one because Chaol is not a favorite and they just don't care to read it. So they just completely skip it altogether. But we are not doing that. I'm going to make Tara read Chaol's book.
as long as it changes my impression back, as long as he does something good in this book, I'm okay with spending hours upon hours reading it because I really want Chaol to end up being good. I'm invested in his growth at this point.
Mm-hmm. He'll be in the Torch Esme trying to get his walking back.
And I hope we get to meet, what was her name? The tavern lady that went to Tori Chesme?
Irene?
Irene, yeah. I hope we get to see her again.
We shall see. But until next week, we're going to finish up Empire of Storms and see what happens with the 13 and Manon and Elide and Lorcan, the husband and wife, and what goes down in the Stone Marshes. If they get there, this book, I can't remember. We hope you enjoyed this episode talking about part 1 of Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. And tune in next week for the last half. And don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and we will see you then. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.